What is up, everybody? Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Hope you guys are having an amazing Sunday. In today's video, we're gonna talk about the couples of champions that we have in Raid Shadow Legends, how they affected the game when they got released, and we're gonna talk a bit where they're good, what they can do, and stuff like that. I feel like there's a lot of tension, a lot of things going out with the new couple, the Ukrainian couple, and people are all going crazy that they're extremely powerful, they're breaking the game, etc. And I gotta say, they are extremely powerful. They're definitely changing the meta completely and stuff like that. But if you stay to think about it, whenever Rotos and Sivir got released, was even worse than it is today. And I'm gonna explain you a bit everything that you need to know about the couples and stuff. So if you're looking in Arena right now, we have Marichkan, Taras, pretty much everywhere after the 10x's and stuff. So yeah, a lot of people got them, and I guess we're gonna see how we're gonna do tomorrow on an arena reset, because it's gonna be completely blind. Okay, it's gonna be just tons of RNG, and it's gonna be a painful reset for pretty much every single person playing the game, regardless of how many fights you've done on all these different teams and how many times you tested different things on them and stuff. Is still gonna be very different from what you're gonna find tomorrow when we're doing a platinum reset, you know. But that being said, let's move over and talk quickly about the champions. So yes, 100% the number one couple in the game at the moment is no one else but the Ukrainian couple, Taras and Marichkan. And that's mainly because they are so different, they're so powerful together, and they're tanky as well, right? That makes a massive difference. So Marichka is an amazing support champion. She has a speed aura, and then you get the cleanse, you get strengthen, you get a shield. Is the passive as well that goes on, revives all your team when she dies. Is something that, yeah, you can lock her with a warlord, she's still gonna do her job, you know. Then the block damage if you're trying to bring an Astrolite or different champions that land these debuffs, and it can be pretty annoying. Like, even before, I remember, like, my Kymar has no accuracy, and sometimes he got lucky, crit, land the poison, and bang, Marichka places block damage, and that can be pretty annoying, especially if you don't have a Baron in your team to ignore that, you know. So just as an idea, Marichka very powerful, and Taras always joining her attack on the A1 is very nasty. Then he boosts the thermometer, right? That can be pretty annoying. A lot of people are testing teams on a speed team, sorry, with Sivir, with Rotos, with Harima, different sort of combinations with them, and some of them are decent. The thing is, even if you lock them, they're gonna rotate so much, you know, because of the thermometer field from Taras here, and it does add up, right? It does add up, because each critical hit fills the thermometer of all allies by 5%. Most probably, he's gonna crit on every single hit, and that gives quite a bit of a thermometer. If you hit Marichka, he's about to destroy you. And yeah, this couple might sound like they're only very powerful in PvP, but I can guarantee you that they can do an amazing job in PvE as well, especially if you're not one of the Kraken's whales that have pretty much all the rest of the champions in the game, and you're speedrunning all your dungeons with Calvalaxes and just poisons and Theodores, you know. Then this will be a massive carry all around Doom Tower and stuff like that. Yeah, they're not great for clan boss, they're not that great for Hydra, honestly, but they can still do lots of work. Like Taras can nuke harder than Seer with this skill if you have enough buffs on him, and that's definitely pretty powerful, considering that he's an HP based champion, and we really wanted to get a strong HP nuker in the game, right? They have better survivability. Defense nukers are great, but honestly, they just don't compare with what Taras could do. They get affected by decreased defense. If you don't have increased defense, they're not as strong. Well, it's a bit different with the HP-based nukers, right? Because they're not getting affected by all these debuffs or buffs. Of course, it does need buffs in order to deal more damage with this skill, but the A2 hits pretty hard as well, and the passive, having so much damage mitigation, is just absolutely insane, guys. Definitely the number one couple in the game. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts as well tomorrow after Platinum Reset, how it went for you. Like, let me know how many fights you won out of all. It's gonna be probably pretty intense. Now, of course, the next couple is gonna be Sivir and Rotos. Rotos went out of the meta, came back ages ago after they nerfed him the first time. And when this couple got released in the game, they were 2-3 times more impactful than Marichka and Taras are at the moment. And the reason for it, it was over 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. And we just didn't had a lot of solutions to deal with them. We didn't have many champions that were able to wreck this couple all around. Rotos was so extremely powerful when they released him. He was gaining extra turns with Relentless. Everybody had him built in Relentless. He was just constantly gaining extra turns, like completely wiping off your team. You might see him every now and then doing it, but before this, I think it even had a higher chance to gain the extra turn and was proccing with extra turns from Relentless, so was just a complete mess. And I feel like the biggest impact on the game, it must have been Tormin. Like, Tormin literally was so broken when they released him. Everything was going wrong with Tormin. He was just so freaking powerful. Then Rotos, again, he's hard to kill. He deals damage both on HP and attack. He's so powerful in so much content, guys. Like, if we're talking about some specific dungeons, Doom Tower bosses and stuff, he's just a beast of a champion. And even now, he is very powerful. The reason why a lot of people are still using him in defense is because of the RNG element that he brings. If he gains a couple of extra turns, you can one-shot him just like bang because of the passive that keeps him alive, you know? And if you're pairing him with Sifi, she removes all the debuffs from him, which again is very, very powerful. This skill used to be more powerful before. This got a bit of a nerf as well. And he used to block revive instantly, if I'm not mistaken. Now he needs to gain HP to reach a specific threshold, and then he's gonna be able to block the revive again. But still very, very powerful. And actually, pairing these two couples together is just pure cancer in Arena. It's a lot of fun to watch them attack. It's not a fast offense or anything like that, but it's just fun to kind of like watch them, you know. Sifi, she got a bit of a nerf as well. I'm not sure if they will plan to nerf the Ukrainian couple, honestly. I'm very curious if they are. I feel like they won't, and they will just bring in a counter, you know, like probably block revive on champions from the Bannerlords or some stuff like this. I feel like that's definitely gonna come, you know. And we have Sleep Unresistible. Everybody was complaining about this, that why it doesn't require accuracy. When they released her, she was so powerful. Then this skill used to be on a 3-turn cooldown, if I'm not mistaken. Then they nerfed it. They've put it down to a 4-turn cooldown instead. The revive stayed the same. But you can see how these champions can be so powerful, right? And how I mentioned, these are not only powerful in PvP, guys. They're very powerful in PvE as well. They're not champions to do your speedruns with, but they are champions that can carry you through content, you know. And you have the resistance aura. But this passive is pretty nice, especially when Rotos the Lost Groom is in the same team, you know. Very nice. Then, if we're gonna move over to the next couple, and I feel like this is definitely number 3 couple, at least for PvP in the entire game, and even in general. Even in general is Venus and Cupidus. They're just so powerful. Even in PvE, you have HP burn, defense down, weaken, tons of damage. So I feel like definitely Venus and Cupidus, they're strong, and they were not that strong a few months ago, but then they got a bit of a buff and it made them godly. Like when they had a buff, everybody was over Cupidus and Venus. They were so damn powerful, destroying pretty much every single offense. Now with the new couple in play, it's not the same anymore. Venus and Cupidus just can't cope with a new couple. If you don't lock the enemies, Taras might be able to nuke you. If your reaction doesn't proc, you're gonna get nuked. You're just not gonna have enough damage to kill the enemy team with the Cupidus now, just from counter attacks like before. They're still very powerful against teams with hegemons usually, because you're just gonna get to counter attack. Teams with a lot of AoE attacks, Kaimars, Warlords, Yumikos, because you get locked, but you can still do some job. So I feel like, yeah, they're very, very powerful. She's a goddess in PvE, Venus, right? Poisons on the A1, pretty good for clan boss 2. Defense down, weaken, AoE. Attacks all enemies, HP burn. The main thing that's so nice is this skill right here. Removes all buffs from all enemies. 50% chance to grant an extra turn. Only available when Cupidus is on the same team. So if you're building her, you do want to give her a bit of accuracy strip some of the buffs from the opponent. Even if she's gonna get chipped, it doesn't really matter, as long as Cupidus can actually start to deal more damage, you know. And Cupidus, I feel like they increased his multipliers as well by quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken. And I think one of the other skills became AoE, or I'm not even 100% sure what other thing changed, but I think this became AoE, and it wasn't AoE before. I think it was a triple hit skill, and they just increased the multipliers. But you have AoE on the A1, damage increases by 15 if the target has any debuffs. Unfortunately, this is pretty hard to play off right now because of the polymorph, but at the beginning, I feel like the blessings were not in, and damn, this was very, very nasty because you are able to debuff the opponents easier. AoE HP burn attacks all enemies. This is a 4.0 multiplier, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty solid damage. And then increase attack, bang, nuke. Very, very powerful. And they're amazing for Hydra as well, guys, as a couple. I'm running them on my Heart team, and it does so much damage. Like, with this skill, he hits for around 1 million on a decapitated head. Very strong. And he has the attack aura for all battles, 33%. And attacks inflict 25% more damage. Always counterattacks when attacked. Only available when Venus is on the same team. And Venus can be dead or whatever. This is still going on. Very, very powerful. Moving over to the next couple. Definitely the number 4 couple is pretty hard at the moment to play him out, in my opinion, but is Yumiko and Karato, right? So we know what Yumiko does. It's kind of like a warlord, a Chimera, bang, they had a baby, and this beauty came out. I didn't manage to pull her, so hopefully one day it's gonna happen. With the A1, she steals some of the thermometer. Then with this skill right here, attacks one enemy 3 times, has a 80% chance of placing a hex debuff for 3 turns. Now, when Karato is on the same team, whenever someone fills the thermometer of an enemy under a hex debuff placed by this champion's thermometer will be filled instead, only available when Karato, the Fox Hunter, is on the same team. This is decent. It's gonna be pretty hard as well for you to land the hex, but it's still gonna happen. She does have a chance to get cheap nowadays with it, but hey. Then decreases the cooldown of skills, increases the cooldown of skills on the enemies. And if you have 2 of them, you're just constantly gonna do it to each other. It's pretty broken. What makes her powerful is the veil right here and being immune to debuffs while she's under a veil. Basically, she's veiled and she has kind of like an immunity on it, you know? Whenever a veil or perfect veil buff is placed on an enemy, has a 75% chance of stealing the buff. This happens before the buff is placed on the initial target, only available when Karato is on the same team. This is actually very powerful against teams with Duchess, right? Because if you manage to steal the veil, it can be pretty juicy. We have accuracy aura. And then talking about Karato, I don't have him empowered, I don't have him awakened, and he can be pretty interesting in the current meta if he would have slightly higher multipliers. If he will ignore some defense here and there, I feel like he could do a much better job. So basically, his passive, damage inflicted by this champion cannot be decreased by enemy passive skills or masteries, except by the passive skills of bosses. So that means that a Taras, for example, will not decrease his damage by 50%. And so goes on. Yumiko, I think Yumiko might affect him because she decreases the ignore damage. Ignore defense damage, so I feel like Yumiko will affect him. But when we're talking about other champions that just reduce damage from passives, not actual ignore defense and stuff, it just doesn't affect him. So he should be pretty solid. But unfortunately, the rest of the things in the kit, they don't really go well in the current meta. And it's such a shame because attacks all enemies is gonna block active skills. This debuff cannot be resisted if Yumiko is on the same team. Unfortunately, it's not really gonna work out. Like, polymorph is gonna wreck you. You're just not gonna be able to deal the damage after. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I wish this skill would just ignore 50% defense if Yumiko is on the same team. That would be so much better, right? Then, this skill right here is actually pretty strong. But grants an extra turn and resets the cooldown of this skill if Yumiko is on the same team and this skill kills an enemy. I think the multipliers on this skill are pretty good, and if you're able to constantly reset it, it's nice. Instead of placing the stun, would be nice, ignore 25% of the defense or something like that. And I feel like they could potentially become one of the top couples for offense in the entire game, you know. But in order to get to that, Karato needs to have a bit of a rework in here, you know. Then talking about block revive and all this, we do have the Halloween couple that we got before, and that's Vlad and Constantine, right? Vlad got a bit of a buff recently. I think one of his skills became AoE as well, and I think is this one if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the multipliers on the champion are not amazing. I feel like when they released the champions were even worse, but they quickly buffed the champions before they actually released them from the test server in-game because they were very, very weak. And they can do a bit of work, but honestly, I feel like it's gonna be pretty hard to bring both of them in a couple. The good part is that they're void, you know, so right here, places a revive on that buff on this champion, will only heal and fill the champion's turn meter when Constantine is on the same team. He doesn't really benefit much from being in the couple, right? And how I mentioned, he just brings leech, he brings leech, decreases the target's max HP, and right here, decrease defense, block active skills, veil on the champion. Block active skills, decrease defense will pretty much mean polymorph, you're gonna get shipped, you know. His base attack is not that amazing either. But if we're gonna go over to Constantine, that's kind of like where things become a bit more interesting. He does hit pretty hard, and the only problem is he needs to have debuffs in order to hit even harder. And this, unfortunately, is not really a thing that's gonna happen in the current meta. It's a big shame because all enemies killed by this champion cannot be revived when Vlad the Nightborn is on the same team. So while this might not work in Platinum Arena on the very high end Platinum Arena, you're still gonna find quite a few weak teams with a couple in the lower Platinum. You're gonna find them in Gold, you're gonna find them in Silver, you're gonna find them in Bronze, in Tag Team Arena. And as long as they're not extremely powerful in terms of builds, these champions can do a bit of work for you if your main concern is that, okay, I need to block the revive, it's hard for me to fit my Lydia in the team, so I need to bring in two damage dealers instead. He can hit pretty hard with this skill. I wish the debuffs would not be required in order to ignore so much defense, you know. But hey, here we are. I'm pretty sure some of these champions we might get a bit of a buff as well in the future. At least kind of like to bring them back on track. Then we have Cardiel and we have Cisia. They're not very powerful as a couple in PvP in my opinion. They're great in Hydra, they're so powerful. They're just great in general in PvE content. Cardiel, of course, on his own is very powerful in PvP as well. Clan boss, everywhere. Like, I don't need to tell you. Speed aura, you have the clans revive on that, block debuffs, you cannot strip the revive on that. Not like you would try to do it anyway, at least in the high-end arena. The A1, you get a bit of a heal, fear, and kind of like hates some specific factions. Demon Spawns and that, and Night Revenant. Then the passive brings a bit of damage reduction from the passives. Whenever an ally attacks, has a 15% chance to team up with them to join the attack. This champion will attack with their default skill, always joins when Cisia is on the same team. And of course, it can only join it once per turn. Pretty interesting. In terms of PvE, they bring a lot of damage. The main issue is that Cisia, even though she hits pretty hard, she's just not great for PvP, you know. Like, if we're quickly gonna check her kit, defense down, weaken is the HP burn, activate the HP burn, that's what makes her so special. But on the passive, if Cardiel is on the same team, all allies will heal by 3% of their max HP from HP burn debuffs instead of receiving damage and losing HP. They're not really aimed as a PvP couple, you know, but they're still very powerful in a lot of content, PvE, and that definitely ranks them up quite a bit. If you would be to make a tier list on the couples, they would be pretty high. I think like in the order of how I'm going, you know. The next couple, guys, is Minaya Coronar. Yeah, Minaya, she's not a great champion, honestly. She requires so many books, and just generally, she has pretty long cooldowns, like 4-turn cooldown to get a bit of a heal, a block debuffs, increased defense. Then, yeah, attacks one enemy. You're getting quite a bit of a heal from here, continuous heals from the A1, and fills the thermometer of all allies by 20% when this champion is killed. Revives this champion with 75% HP when killed if Coronar is on the same team, and this is on a 4-turn cooldown. Yeah, it's not really gonna slow you down in a fight. It's not really gonna do much for you. But again, if you guys remember my Corona army, when we actually use 3 Coronars and Minaya, or double Coronar and Minaya, and go against teams that are faster than you with Hegemons or Kaimars, champions that hit you AoE, and your Coronars are constantly gonna counterattack, that's actually pretty fun. It's harder to play it in high-end Platinum at the moment. It was a bit of fun at the beginning, but unfortunately, they're not really powerful anymore for the high-end arena, but for the lower tiers arena, for a tag team arena, they're actually pretty fun. Even now, you actually see quite a few teams with them running around, you know. And the thing with Coronar is the passive, right? So basically, this passive always counterattacks when hit if Minaya is on the same team. And he's an AoE champion, so either run him on a provoke just to be annoying, you can run him on a stun, you can run him on a shield, you can run him on savage. You have so many options on how you can run the couple, you know. And he's gonna counterattack without Minaya if he's gonna get attacked by specific champions that have specific debuffs on, you know, like decrease attack, decrease defense, if I'm not mistaken, right? Counterattacks when hit by decrease attack, decrease defense, or decrease speed too. Then you can provoke with him. They're pretty powerful in PvE though, like they're good carries, you know, they're tanky, they're gonna do the job. It's slower, but they're gonna do the job, you know. And I feel like when they got released, they were pretty powerful as a duo in duoing dungeons, not really soloing. They were doing the Ice Golem, they were doing the Spider, they were doing the Dragon. The only thing they were not doing was the Fire Knight, but they were actually doing in a duo all the stage 20 dungeons. So they were pretty powerful as a couple too, but they kind of like fell off a bit. The next one, in my opinion, guys, is gonna have to be Xavier and Baleno. Now, Baleno recently got a buff, right? And even though they're not great as a PvP couple, but they're amazing as a PvE couple. And especially if you are running poison detonation teams, they're more powerful now, because when Baleno is with Xavier on the same team, he's gonna land defense down and weaken unresistible. We're gonna check it in just a second, but Xavier, she has this skill available if Baleno is on the same team, attacks an enemy, applies a debuff spread effect, taking 4 random debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. Now, this made a lot of sense before they buffed Baleno, because he had defense down and weaken on a single target, and I feel like Plarion kind of thought, you know what, Baleno is gonna do that, Xavier is gonna attack the same enemy, spread the debuffs to the rest of the team. Unfortunately, the synergy in between this couple, it never really worked too good, especially with the debuff spread. You're gonna have to take turns, you wanna have the debuffs, you wanna make the run faster. So I feel like this will slow you down, will not really benefit you much, and it's kind of like gonna be a bit of a waste from her side, at least, you know. You know the rest of the kit on Xavier. I don't really want to go over her kit. She's pretty powerful as a champion. Love her. She was one of my biggest carries in the game. She was my 4th legendary, if I'm not mistaken, or 3rd. Man, she was so damn powerful back in the day because we didn't have so many champions. And Xavier was S tier at that point. Clan boss and everything, she was the best. Then this handsome fella always following me around when pulling shards. He got a bit of a buff now, right? So defense down, weaken AoE. The debuff cannot be resisted when Xavier is on the same team. Yeah, you can make some sort of combos with this. I have a feeling that in the future, maybe they're gonna become more powerful in some other content that might come to the game, you know. I'm not 100% sure, but I have a feeling that they might become a bit more powerful in the future. And that's pretty much everything, you know. Activates this champion's overkill skill. Also activates Xavier's poison rain skill when Xavier is on the same team. That's kind of like how it goes. I feel like this is decent. Yeah, he's gonna do a bit of damage, but I don't find them as effective, you know. Then we have Astrolon and Countess Lix. Astrolon was a fusion. Countess Lix, she is a pretty interesting champion too. They can do a bit of work in PvP. They can do a bit of work in PvE as well. They're just not the top couple in the game, but they're not too bad. You know, Astrolon ignores increased defense, strengthen, ally protection. He has the stun AoE, and the couple thing is right here. So attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 30% chance of placing a defense down. Countess Lix will team up and join the attack if they are on the same team. Countess Lix will use their default skill. So I think they got released together with Cardiel and Sisia. They kind of like try to do a very similar thing for both. Countess Lix will not team up on this attack if the skill is used when counter-attacking or when teaming up to attack with another champion. It's not a very powerful thing in the couple right here. I feel like Countess Lix might benefit a bit more if I'm not mistaken. She does look pretty sick. Love those green wings, you know. And both of them attack-based champions, right? She's great on the Fire Knight. Double hit right here, triple hit right here. Attacks all enemies. You have block active skills, which is not that great in PvP at the moment. Decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except these champions by 1 turn. You have this first passive. Removes 1 random debuff from Astrolon and this champion at the start of each round, only when they are in the same couple. Again, this is a bit slightly better, but it's not really gonna be anything very significant, you know. Like, yeah, it's gonna remove a debuff, but not that amazing. You can run them in a lot of PvE content though. And then fills the champion's turn meter each time an ally receives a debuff. This was actually pretty interesting because you were able to kind of like cut in between the enemy's team. When they released the couple, it was pretty fun. I remember some clanmates actually that managed to pull the champion early on. They were trying to do all sorts of crazy things in arena with them, and they were pretty fun for a while, you know. And then we have the new couple that's been added to the game, guys, and the fusion and the partner. So we have Oela. She's a decent champion. She does look amazing. She can keep the increased resistance buff constantly on because you can buff with this on a 3-turn cooldown, and then with this increase the duration of all ally buffs, which is pretty interesting. Decrease speed. Yeah, you can use the champion on the Iron Twins Fortress. How I mentioned, just having resistance won't be enough. You need to have survivability. You need to have tankiness in stats, you know. And when she is together with Alton of the Shell, she's gonna place continuous heal buff for 2 turns on the ally and instantly activate it. Yeah, a bit of a heal from here. Talking about Alton, I just don't feel the champion at all, honestly, and I haven't bothered to go for him in the champ chase or champ training tournament, whatever we had. On the A1, we'll ignore 50% of the target's resistance if Oela is on the same team. Now, I'm not saying that in the future a new dungeon that will have 1000 resistance won't come to the game. Like, I have no idea. I cannot say that. And then, yeah, probably we could say then that the new couple is decent because he's gonna be able to land the defense down without having 5 million resistance or accuracy, sorry, or who knows what else might come to the game. This skill is not affected by the partner. Here, we'll ignore 50% of the target's resistance if Oela is on the same team. He places sleep. The champion is not hitting extremely hard. The multipliers are kind of like average, I would say. And the passive, the chance increases to 30 if Oela is on the same team. Basically has a 15% chance of decreasing the cooldown of one of these champion skills by 1 turn every time they are healed by a continuous heal buff, you know. So they're not very interesting, either for PvE, either for PvP. Not great for Hydra, not great for Clan Boss, not great for dungeons necessarily. If you got them and you don't have a lot of decent champions on your account, you can make it work with them in some content. I'm not saying no to it, but all around I feel like they're the weakest couple that we have in the game in terms of legendaries. You know, I feel like Krognam and Jamarsa are actually better than them. We're not really gonna go over them. They're pretty decent for PvE, and if you get them early. So if you started a new account and you're willing to go and work for those referrals for an entire 2 months to get them done, then yeah, you could potentially run Krognam and Jamarsa, get some things out of them. But if you don't, probably they're not really gonna be very interesting in end game, even once you pass the mid game. On his own, Coronar can do a bit of work with the HP burn. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, in terms of epics, guys, we're not really gonna cover the epics. We have a few couples. Skullcrumb Sinesha, in my opinion, being the best because of what they can do in terms of damage, AoE attacks and stuff. Alika, Sikara, they just revive each other. Atura and Kalia makes Atura immune to crowd control, etc. Juliana, Romero, they're kind of like rubbish. And probably we have a couple more like Phoenix and I even forgot her name. What's her name? Talia, but nothing too crazy. Let me know in the comments down below which one is your most favorite couple in the entire game. How do you think the Ukrainian couple is gonna do? Like, you think we're gonna get a nerf for them? You think that we're gonna get a counter instead of a nerf, which most probably is gonna happen? And yeah, guys, that was all for this video. Much love, appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.